We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast is recorded, the Wadawurrung people, and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
This is the HSR podcast brought to you by WorkSafe Victoria, helping you achieve better health and safety outcomes in your workplace. I'm your host, Chris McKenzie, and thank you for joining me for the final episode of this podcast series, hearing from industry experts and leaders in OH&S, offering advice, guidance and support on a range of topics for health and safety representatives, employers and employees. So who are we? WorkSafe is Victoria's occupational health and safety regulator and workers' compensation insurer. To put it simply, our job is to reduce workplace harm and improve outcomes for injured workers. We're here to educate, support and guide Victorian workplaces to provide a safe environment. We're also here to hold employers to account if they fail to protect their workers. But we can't be everywhere all the time. That's why the role of health and safety representatives, or HSRs for short, is so important. They play a crucial role in getting Victorian workers home safe at the end of each day. This is the HSR podcast brought to you by WorkSafe, helping achieve better health and safety outcomes in your workplace. So far in this series, we've learned all about HSRs, or Health and Safety Representatives, how they're elected and their powers under the OH&S Acts, what obligations employers have towards them, and the critical importance of proper consultation to get resolution on health and safety issues in your workplace. If you've missed any of the first 9 episodes, make sure to hit the links on the page to catch up. In this final episode, we're being joined by WorkSafe's Executive Director of External Affairs, Sam Jenkin, and Mike Craig, one of WorkSafe's dedicated Health and Safety Representative Support Officers, about WorkSafe's commitment to supporting HSRs in the very important work they do. Welcome to you both.
Thanks for having us, Chris.
Thank you.
Let's go to you first, Mike. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you care so much about HSRs and the role they play.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I've been involved with health and safety for over 13 years, firstly as a health and safety representative, but also as a manager dealing with safety matters. During this time, I've definitely been passionate about HSRs and what value and benefits they can provide within workplaces.
And Sam, your role oversees a lot of HSR-related projects. Can you share with us why WorkSafe has implemented these projects and how we're hoping they're supporting Victorian HSRs and workplaces?
Yeah, sure, Chris. Thanks for the question. Look, I think first and foremost, WorkSafe's strategy, its 21 to 24 strategy, has a deliberate focus on 6 strategic choices within our prevention focus. And one of those 6 strategic choices is supporting Victoria's network of health and safety representatives. Now, the reason why this is the case is that we understand how fundamental HSRs are to a functioning occupational health and safety framework. They've been a vital piece of the puzzle, and we'll get to that in a moment, a vital piece of the health and safety puzzle for a long period of time. And we just want to make sure that that role that they play is emphasised. We have a strong policy position that not only are HSRs protected by the Occupational Health and Safety Act, but they need to be supported to best understand their role within the system, but also our role is to support those who they work with, employers and their colleagues in the workplace, so that their role is understood and best utilised. Because ultimately, health and safety reps are our eyes and ears on the ground throughout Victorian workplaces. There are hundreds of thousands of Victorian workplaces, and we have, on a good day, a couple of hundred sets of boots on the ground inspecting workplaces. So you can do the maths yourself, Chris. We rely on health and safety reps to not only identify health and safety issues in the workplace, but to the best extent possible, solve those in consultation with their employers so that we don't have to get involved at all.
You mentioned the puzzle piece. There is such a thing as an HSR puzzle. What is that, and can you tell us a little bit about it?
Very happy to talk about this one, Chris, because this is a campaign that is very close to my heart because I had a key role in framing it up. So the aim of the campaign was for those who already are HSRs and have designated work groups to ensure that they knew that we're here to support them in the role that they play. But probably more importantly was to bring to the attention of employers and employees who don't have those in their workplaces to think about whether there is value in having those in their workplaces from an employer point of view. Have a chat to their employees about potentially creating a designated work group and having a health and safety representative to support the consultation process. And from a worker perspective, have those guys think about, well, hang on, how are our consultation processes in the workplace functioning at the moment? And would we receive higher value from actually having a health and safety rep, a formal health and safety rep in the workplace?
A really good initiative, and we'll hear a little bit more about some of the other things that WorkSafe is doing to support HSRs in a moment. But Mike, I want to come back to you. You work with HSRs all day, every day. Could you tell us a little bit about what that work looks like and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, thanks, Chris, for the question. And probably to add what Sam's mentioned as well around, that puzzle piece. We want to help HSRs, really be empowered and have the ability and the tools to represent their fellow workers on health and safety matters. Our role as HSR Support Officers, we provide advice and assistance to Victorian HSRs as well as deputy HSRs in the workplace. And where we do that is really providing the guidance on use on the OHS Act, mainly around Part 4, which is a duty of an employer to consult, and also Part 7 of the Act around representation of employees, so HSRs, and also things such as health and safety committees fall under that. We provide support in different ways to HSRs that best suit their needs. That could be, for example, a phone call, an email. We might do an online, Zoom or a Teams meeting, but also be out in the field and meeting with HSRs in person, however they wish to get that support. We also provide support by accompanying our WorkSafe inspectors where it's needed to provide that extra level of support out in the field and provide that expertise to HSRs when they're, dealing with matters. We've also had some great success also helping employers and their management in those workplaces to understand their obligations toward health and safety reps. We know that's a big piece of work, and we've had some really great success there.
What are some of the more common questions you're getting from HSRs out there, Mike?
Yeah, probably the biggest ones we're finding is really around the powers of a health and safety rep. So basically, what can they do? What can't they do under the legislation? So they've got a bit of a guardrail knowing they don't step outside of it and cause some grief in the workplace. But also we've had some, probably one of the biggest questions we get is around how do they have an effective conversation with their employer or their manager about health and safety matters. Their day-to-day job isn't to be dealing with health and safety. HSR is a voluntary elected role on top of their day-to-day role that they get paid to do. So we want to support them and set them up for success. So that's really important that, they're probably the key questions we mainly get from HSRs.
And is it just HSRs that are coming to you with questions, Mike, or can employers come to you and ask about their obligations as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're really getting some great success in this area. Employers do have an appetite to really improve and enhance the way that they consult in their workplaces, and they would like to know more about how they can do that successfully. So we've provided a lot of work in that area, but also to just maybe workers who have maybe some questions, maybe they're thinking about becoming a health and safety representative. So they kind of want to know a little bit more about the role before maybe they're putting their hand up in their workplace. So they get a bit of a taste and feel for the role.
What are some of the biggest myths that you'd like to dispel about health and safety representatives?
Yeah, probably the biggest part is, as I mentioned earlier, was about that they have that sense, or people might have the belief or the sense that they're responsible for health and safety in the workplace, which they don't. HSRs do not have any duties or obligations under the legislation. So we want to make sure that they're really clear on where they sort of sit and be part of that eyes and ears, as Sam mentioned earlier, in a workplace. Probably one of the other myths is that the way that they, have the ability to influence change in the workplace. Where do they kind of sit within the organisation to influence that change? Again, they're not responsible for safety, but they have the ability to raise ideas on behalf of their workers to make those fundamental improvements in the workplace.
Sam, from a broader WorkSafe perspective, a similar question. Is there anything out there about HSRs that you think is a bit of a myth, or that you would like people to know otherwise?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I think the biggest one there is that HSRs do not mean workplace disputes. I think when I spoke earlier, what I really wanted to focus on was the important consultative role that HSRs can play in bringing employees, of which they are one, as Mike's highlighted, but bringing employees and employers together to solve problems. Ours is a consultative framework within OHS. It's really about employers and employees working together, because ultimately they know the work site best. They know the hazards best, and they know how to best manage the risks associated with those hazards in their workplace. So it's all very contextual. And so from our perspective, we've talked about eyes and ears on the ground, but from our perspective, HSRs are really that missing piece, that joining piece that can bring employers and workers together to solve those problems on the ground in a way that we don't even need to get involved. We will get involved if we have to, because we're the workplace health and safety regulator. But for us, it's really about the consultative framework and solving problems where they occur. And that's really, for me, what HSRs are all about.
Too many workplaces in Victoria still have that missing piece of the puzzle. Mike, how often are people coming to you with questions about potential safety issues in their workplace, but they're not an HSR and they're not sure what to do?
Yeah, and that's really important to note. If the people don't have the HSR within their workplace, but they are concerned about health and safety, the great thing is WorkSafe has support available through our advisory team. They're available, a phone call away for people to get that advice or guidance around workplace hazards and how to get that support in their workplace.
And Sam, what else is WorkSafe doing to encourage more take up in the HSR space, I guess?
I suppose I'd start there, Chris, by saying I can't talk highly enough about the work that Anita and Mike and the crew do in supporting HSRs and encouraging others to take on the mantle of being a health and safety rep. It is an exceptionally important role, and we're here to support them every step of the way. In further supporting them, we have a range of health and safety newsletters. We have one general newsletter that goes out monthly. I'd really encourage anyone who's interested in becoming a health and safety rep or employer who might be interested in how they can better support their health and safety reps, or even those who don't have health and safety reps, to really get on the WorkSafe website and sign up to that newsletter. We're broadening that out, so we've introduced a healthcare-specific health and safety rep newsletter as well, given some of the specific challenges within that sector, and we're looking to expand further in the months and years to come. We also have an annualised grants program here at WorkSafe, and the last round that's currently being considered has a focus on HSRs. It's not the only way which you can be successful in receiving a grant through WorkSafe, but this year we made a fundamentally conscious decision to preference those grant applications that either focused on supporting the existing HSR network, but perhaps more importantly, or just as importantly, broadening the number of HSRs that we have throughout the state. So that's another way that we've been really supporting HSRs. We also have a number of sessions every year during our Health and Safety Month, coming up in October this year. Do yourself a favour getting on board that focus on the role of HSRs and how we can better support those. And also in October, we have the annual Health and Safety Representative Conference, which is run by the Victorian Trades Hall Council, but we proudly support both through attendance, through Anita and Mike's team, through our CEO's attendance, just demonstrating how seriously we take the role of HSRs, but also the financial contribution we make to Trades Hall every year to support that conference, to ensure not only that the keynote day is able to be visited by up to 1,000 HSRs in Melbourne, but also attended in a number of regional settings as well, where regional HSRs throughout Victoria can come together, band together, hear the sessions that occur at that conference, but also network amongst their peers in regional centres throughout Victoria.
You mentioned the HSR newsletter, Michael. We've got nearly 10,000 subscribers to that newsletter now. That must be a good feeling to know that there's that many people.
It's very exciting. But basically, yeah, it's been, as Sam mentioned, it's a great resource for people to sign on board. There's a lot of valuable information and tips and guidance to set HSRs up for success. But for people, again, who are maybe wanting to become a HSR, the newsletter's been a great source of inspiration. Same for employers and safety professionals as well. So, we definitely encourage people to sign up and get the newsletter.
You speak about inspiration there. If someone's listening and they've been thinking about becoming an HSR, or at least looking into helping out in capacity in health and safety in their workplace, what advice would you give them, Mike?
Yeah, the biggest thing is having that interest and spark and wanting to do it for the reasons to support their fellow workers around health and safety. Usually that's where we see their passion lie, that they want to see their colleagues not come to harm, but also having the ability to have the voice and having the way that they can represent their workers in an honest and a trustworthy fashion with their organisation.
And Sam?
Look, I'm in awe of health and safety representatives. I'm in awe of the health and safety representatives we have here within WorkSafe, but also those I've had the privilege to meet through the WorkSafe Health and Safety Awards that we get to experience every year, and we get to hear the stories of the how and the why HSRs do what they do, the passion they bring to the role, the dedication they bring to the role, because as Mike said earlier, it's something they do on top of their day job. So that takes a level of dedication. It takes a level of training, and we know how detailed the training for HSRs is. And that can often lead to issues in the workplace where the HSR might have a higher understanding of the OHS framework than the managers and supervisors they're dealing with. But ultimately, they're all there for the right reasons. And so to see those and to see those HSRs and to talk to those HSRs on the awards night when they're being recognised for their volunteering and the dedication they bring to the role is probably the highlight of the Health and Safety Awards every year for me. And I'm really excited that this year, as we have in previous years, but certainly more so this year, our annual report will highlight some of our nominees from last year and the great role they play. And again, I just can't speak highly enough of health and safety reps all out there throughout Victoria and throughout Australia as well. But for those who are interested and considering taking the step, I'd encourage that you do so, because it's a really rewarding and fulfilling role, as I hear from our WorkSafe health and safety reps, but also those I've had the privilege to speak to throughout the state.
And also great knowing that there's fantastic people like Mike there to support them when they need it. Mike,
absolutely.
Sam, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
This has been the final episode of the HSR podcast, brought to you by WorkSafe, helping achieve better health and safety outcomes in your workplace. Make sure you check the show notes for all the links to the resources and guidance mentioned throughout this podcast series. And if you have any OH&S issues or concerns, or to lodge a case, please contact WorkSafe's advisory service on 1800 136 089. You can also head to the WorkSafe website to subscribe to our many monthly newsletters, sharing news, events and resources, including the ones specific to HSRs. And if you are a HSR in Victoria, WorkSafe has dedicated support officers available whenever you need to help. Just email them at hsro@worksafe.vic.gov.au.
Please note, this information is based on laws applying in Victoria only. It is correct at the time of recording, but is not to be relied upon as legal advice. This episode does not outline all the legal obligations under Victoria's occupational health and safety laws.